everyone. When Shay originally asked me to speak at this forum, I thought, why me? But then I realised that my husband Trevor and I have experienced a wide variety of coal seam gas activities, not only by ourselves and with family members, but also in a landholder group situation. And we've achieved some pretty reasonable results, so this is our story. First, some history. Trevor and I live right slap bang in the middle of the Combabula gas fields. This area is within an origin tenement and starts approximately 42 kilometres northeast of Roma. It covers 138,000 hectares and is situated within both the Western Downs and the Maranoa Regional Council. I will emphasise from the start that Trevor and I are not against the coal seam gas industry. In fact, our 4 children, in one way or another, have derived a good income from this industry. What we are against is the uncertainty surrounding our very precious underground water resources due to the development of the gas field. We also oppose the enormous amount of pressure placed on landholders to push these projects through. To us, this development appears to be rushed due more to company concerns about their profits, rather than with any real regard to the scientific and environmental issues arising from these activities. We have Origin Energy's Reedy Creek coal seam gas processing facility being constructed to the east of our home block, Hyde Park, with only one property separating us. This facility will gather coal seam gas and water from the wells already drilled in our area and send the gas to Gladstone for export. The byproduct water will be treated for either re-injection into the Precipice aquifer, which is apparently the easiest aquifer for this to happen, possible irrigation use, or release it into Yulbar Creek, which runs through our property, if the storages at Reedy Creek cannot cope with the volume of water required to be held. I couldn't find out what they were going to do with the contaminants from the treated water, so we just hope we don't have a huge storm that overflows their storage and sends a heap of contaminated water down the Condamine-Ballon river system. How many of you have CSU production wells on your properties? Yeah, there's some there. Although we personally do not have any production wells at present, we are surrounded by properties with hundreds of wells either already drilled or in the process of being drilled. We have been contacted by Origin wanting to discuss their plans for our properties, but we have refused to meet until all our outstanding issues relating to their company have been finalised completely. We have made a commitment to ourselves that we deal with one thing at a time. Otherwise, we don't have the time or energy for our own business, our own family, or our own selves. One such issue was to do with the gas pipeline that APLNG, which is Origin's pipeline division, wanted to put through our property and our son and daughter-in-law's property that adjoins us. At the start, we requested APLNG provide us with plans for the project relating to our property before we were prepared to commence the negotiation process. We have found that it's a good idea to have the companies provide the plans up front because it gives us a chance to have a look at them, check out some details before we ever sit across the table from them. This very simple and reasonable request turned into an ongoing battle for over 2 years with APLNG. But we stood our ground and refused to meet with them, which forced them to supply us with the plans for the Yarrumba lateral pipeline that would join Spring Gully to the northwest of us to Reedy Creek just to the east of us. I'm not sure who plotted the proposed alignment, but they must have been in fairyland, as we were absolutely astonished when we saw the pipeline was cutting between our son's shed and cattle yards, then straight through the middle of the dam that supplies water to our house, our cattle yards and feedlot, then continued on through a paddock of contour banks. We were then equally astounded to receive a letter from them to say they had also used helicopters to check out the proposed alignment to ensure it didn't impact on us. If there are any APLNG representatives in the room, No, I don't think they're there. Perhaps typing Google Earth into the search engine on your computer would be slightly more cost-effective in the future. Well, for 2 years, we battled with APLNG to ensure the pipeline would be put where it had the least impact, and we eventually sought the help of the CSG Compliance Unit. It was the first time we'd ever had to do something like this, and we found the process extremely stressful and daunting. I spent literally dozens of hours researching and documenting the information we would bring to the meeting. It was also the first time we had used the CSG Compliance Unit, but we ended up with a negotiated outcome we could live with. In fact, it was the first time in over 2 years that we actually had an APLNG representative actually ask us, where do you want us to put the pipeline? I mean, seriously. Well, Trevor didn't hesitate. He just said, well, where we want you to put it is a place you're not going to like because it's going to hurt. Then our son Dan obligingly gave directions, telling them, and if you don't know where that is, it's where the sun don't shine. And if you're wondering where the pipeline actually ended up going, it's buried somewhere between APLNG's original plan and just east of where the sun don't shine. Another positive outcome was that the CSG Compliance Unit officer followed through and came out to our properties to ensure APLNG complied with the alignment we had agreed on in our meeting, which definitely helped with the pressure we'd been trying to handle on our own. It wasn't the only time we found ourselves in mediation sessions with APLNG, as we were back to negotiate conduct and compensation issues when we were served with election notices later on in the pipeline process. The compensation they offered us was, quite frankly, insulting. In fact, I actually asked them if they thought it was a fair value. Their reply was that their valuer had worked it out and the facts were there to support it. That was when I took the checkbook out and said, okay, I'll write that out. If you think that's fair compensation, I'll write a cheque out to you for that amount. You take your pipeline and go away. As you can guess, they didn't take us up on their offer. Well, we didn't take them up on their offer either. We dug our toes in and we walked away with over 4 times what they had originally offered, and with an access and conduct code for our properties that they had to agree with. Should you reach that stage in your negotiations, do your research, back up everything with facts and figures. It is your property, your business, your home, your personal life and family life that is being impacted, so do not forget that. You may think it's easier to say, I can't do this, but trust me, you really need to retain control, otherwise you may not be able to live with the alternative. As landowners, we have the right to develop our properties for positive economic, environmental and personal benefits. And we also have the right to get rid of these projects if they don't deliver the outcomes we want. With CSG development on our land, if we don't set up the standards we require beforehand to ensure we receive positive and beneficial outcomes, we don't have the right to kick them off. So put a lot of effort into securing a practical and beneficial result. I have found the more knowledge we have puts us in a stronger position when dealing with these companies. By keeping factual and not becoming emotional, we achieved far better outcomes and retained our sanity and dignity. How many of you have been approached regarding plans to build high voltage transmission lines across your land to supply power for this infrastructure? All right, there's some of you there. Well, you're in for a treat. This has been another challenge, for want of a better word, that we've had to face, as a massive network of power substations and high voltage transmission lines are either being built or in the process of being built throughout our area to supply power to several gas processing facilities. The Yulbar North to Blythedale 275,000 volt transmission line was announced over 3 years ago. It is to solely power Santos's Blythedale gas processing facility, with the proposed alignment impacting our properties and several other landholders in our own local area. This transmission line was running within 400 metres of people's homes, over their main entrances, across points where children waited for school buses, and over quite a bit of valuable farming country. For the landowners in this area, it simply wasn't acceptable. And after trying to tell Powerlink it was a bad alignment and being ignored, 18 landholders met and formed the Wood Duck Landholder Group. If you're wondering where the Wood Duck name came from, a lot of the properties affected border up with the Wood Duck State Forest, so we kind of got stuck with that name. It's not a bad analogy though, as the wood duck symbolises a common species throughout Australia, just going about their business and not flamboyant in any way, shape or form, pretty much like farmers. Meeting with Powerlink as a group certainly got their attention, and our strength related to keeping our message simple and having common goals. We identified 3 issues that we felt were of extreme importance to our entire group. The first one was to ensure the transmission line was at least 1 kilometre away from homes. The second one was to ensure transmission lines did not cross main property entrances or where children wait for school buses. And third was to ensure that impacts to farming businesses were kept to an absolute minimum. At first, Powerlink had no interest whatsoever in changing the alignment to accommodate any of our concerns. But we used all the resources we had at our disposal, which included the media, government ministers, the gas companies themselves, in this case Santos, to force change within the organisation. We kept to a close-knit group, with no landholder meeting with Powerlink individually, only as a group. Some members did not have the impact that the others did, but felt the issues were so important for future transmission lines that they supported the members who had the worst impacts. As a measure of the group's success, Powerlink was forced to have the methods they used with the Wood Duck Group investigated by an independent legal team, with the ensuing report recommending significant changes to their processes. When the alignment was finally announced, after we'd held it up for almost 2 years, the closest house to the transmission line was 900 metres away, and every other home was well over 1 kilometre away. The transmission lines avoided property entrances and school bus stops, and very little agricultural land was affected. In addition, the group forced a complete overhaul of Powerlink's land access protocols, which led to a massive improvement in that area. We also pushed the issue of landowners' time being compensated for, and this has now been recognised, with Powerlink paying a project participation and access allowance, which acknowledges the time a landowner has to spend away from their business while dealing with Powerlink during the environmental impact assessment stage and later stages of the project. Another win for the group is that Santos, the company requiring the power from this transmission line, has agreed to pay an annual commercial fee to landholders carrying this line. We believe it has been set at $2,000 per kilometre per annum and linked with the CPI. This has set precedents for the other CSG companies to follow. The Wood Duck Landholder Group did achieve extremely positive outcomes. How many of you are trying to negotiate make good agreements for your bores? Yeah, lovely, isn't it? At present, we are also negotiating make good agreements with Origin for 2 water bores that draw water from the Walloon coal measures. The extraordinary length of time taken and the methods and tactics used by Origin to negotiate and reach a settlement, and the process we have been put through, is nothing short of disgraceful. I've had to pretty much sit down and teach myself a degree in hydrogeology to research the huge amounts of information relating to the Walloon coal measures and the water tables. What I have found through this research really frightens me. It has made me question the protection of our underground water resources and the safety of the water bores that are now blowing more and more gas into the air. Our own bores have been assessed as highly explosive, therefore if we have to make repairs, that's a huge problem. Origin has dragged the chain so effectively in the Maplewood area that no bores have been decommissioned and the gas continues to blow out into the atmosphere. This has been a situation where the CSG compliance unit was useful, but the best outcome for us was by using a combination of the Gasfields Commission, AgForce, and directly approaching the responsible government minister. Unfortunately, I'm now going to have to break in a new minister just when I was getting along quite well with the old one. How many of you keep a record of your time and expenses when you're dealing with CSG companies? Anybody? Good. I'm pleased to see that. I keep a record of the time it has taken us to deal with each of the activities we have been forced into negotiations with. It truly is terrifying the amount of time we have lost from our own business and life. It does not take much to tally up 400 hours dealing with one issue. The companies we negotiate with are obliged to compensate for losses to our business caused by their actions. Having to take time away from our business to meet with them, take their phone calls, and deal with all the documentation involved is a loss to our business. As I do have a record, we have been paid for our time and other expenses while dealing with the CSG companies. My advice would be to keep a track in writing of your time and expenses relating to the companies you have to deal with. It can be as simple as keeping a record in a diary by the phone or in your pocket, or could be as advanced as updating the spreadsheet every time you invest your time to address a CSG matter. How many of you have read the Land Access Code? Yeah, good. Well, read it, as it is another resource. It points out the minimum requirements that these companies have to adhere to, and it gave us a starting point for any negotiations. It also became the basis for our own individual property access code that the companies have to agree to abide by before they set foot on our land. We don't make outlandish or unreasonable demands. We just ensure our unique animal welfare, biosecurity and property management issues have the protection we require and have been totally understood by the companies. After all, it is our land and business that their activities are impacting on. It's also our home and we need our privacy respected. We've also advised all the companies we deal with that we can be contacted between 7 in the morning through to 5:30 in the afternoon, only on business days. This means no weekends or public holidays. We can relax of an evening knowing the phone ringing, usually is a friend, a neighbour, or someone not associated with CSG. There is nothing worse than having a phone call at 9 at night from these guys advising us of something that's really going to design to annoy us, and then we go off to bed worried and tense. It doesn't make for a peaceful night's sleep, I'll tell you. If the cut-off point is 5:30 in the afternoon, we have a chance to relax and talk of other things before bedtime. I can also tell you that fearing about the CSG industry at bedtime isn't in my top 10 favourite foreplay moves. So partners take note. How many of you have conduct and compensation agreements? Yep, they're good fun too. Check out your conduct and compensation agreements carefully and make sure it reflects the outcomes you have agreed to with the company officials before you send it off to your preferred legal team to review. Discuss the CCA with your solicitor so they can understand what you require for your property, your business and any personal issues. They cannot do the best for you if they do not have the full picture. Write down everything you reach agreement on. Don't expect to remember what you have discussed with the companies. If it isn't written down and agreed upon, it can't happen. And in our experience, if it isn't in their favour, they won't remind you. Check out the definitions in your CCA. We negotiated for one gas pipeline and one gas pipeline only, but found out when we checked the CCA that we were about to sign was that the definition of pipeline meant, and I quote, one or more pipelines as defined in the PNG Act, and one or more water pipelines or any combinations of them constructed or to be constructed over the land either alone or with any other land, and includes all ancillary surface or subsurface equipment, cables including telecommunication or fibre optic cables, conduits, valves, valve stations, pumps, pumping stations, compressor stations, but wait, there's more, meters, meter stations, scraper stations, connections, fittings, sign structures, communications equipment and towers, and equipment required for the construction, operation and maintenance of the pipeline, or which APLNG considers unnecessary or convenient or in connection with the pipeline or the easement rights. Pipeline also includes any proposed pipeline. We got that changed, believe me. If we'd signed this without changing the definition, we could have ended up with a lot of other constructions and impact on not only the easement area, but also on our other land adjoining the easement, so please check everything thoroughly. Even after we'd sorted all that out, our daughter-in-law Christy picked up that all through the CCA, the word pipeline was in the plural. We changed that too. As I've previously touched on, we draw on resources we didn't at first realise could be useful. These include the CSG Compliance Unit, various government departments who can help with very useful information, AgForce, which we found very good for support, discussion and research, and for the CSG workshop it regularly holds. We also found the Gasfields Commission has been another good source for information and help. The media has been of benefit, as when the frustration really sets in, I compile a letter and send it off to the Country Life or our local paper. The feedback I receive from other people never ceases to amaze me. It just goes to prove that there's a lot of other landholders that are in a similar situation. If you do this, just make sure you have the facts and reasons to back it all up. Although I said earlier, Trevor and I are not against the CSG industry, we do struggle with the pressure brought about from its activities. Before CSG moved in, our area was quite peaceful with very little traffic on our roads. We were not prepared for the thousands of vehicle movements that have caused massive damage to our roads. We were not prepared for the thousands of CSG workers, mostly fly in, fly out, to our towns, on our roads and on our properties, or for the large accommodation camps dotted around the landscape. Our feeling of peace and security became replaced by constant vigilance and suspicion. But since the beginning of this year, the CSG activities have practically come to a standstill. The companies themselves have shed literally thousands of jobs. Contractors do not have any further work, so they have also downsized with further job losses. Motels and accommodation units have gone from full occupancy to very low occupancy rates. This is in our town of Roma. Our roads have been left damaged, and there does not appear to be any extra money available for repairs. The speed that this downturn has happened appears to have caught the area totally unprepared and is now causing an entirely different set of impacts. Very little information is available as to when or how it will all start again. Although personally I'm enjoying the peace and not having the traffic, it is concerning what the ripple effect will have throughout the community and our towns. How many farmers are here today? Oh yes, a few of you. As I said in the beginning, I'm not against the CSG industry, but I am, however, 150% committed to farmers receiving a good benefit from these activities, not just financially, but also to protect their land, their water resources, their businesses, their family and lifestyle from any negative impacts brought about by this industry now and into the future. I'm always a bit surprised when people on the land ask what they do and they reply, I'm just a farmer. Well, being a farmer is the most important job in the world. We have knowledge and experience that cannot be found in any university degree or book. Without food producers like us, the world would starve. Without fibre producers, the world would run around naked and cold, and that's not a good look for some of us. We are all good, committed people. We're very concerned about the possible threats and challenges from this encroaching CSG industry to our water resources, our land and our family. Be passionate about your lifestyle, property and business. Never apologise and be very proud to be just a farmer. I'd like to leave you with a little prayer my husband reckons gets him through the day. It goes like this. Dear God, so far today I've done all right. I haven't gossiped and I haven't lost my temper. I haven't been grumpy, nasty or selfish. But in a few minutes, God, I'm going to get out of bed and that's when I'm really going to need a lot of help. Amen. Thank you.
Thanks very much there, Jenny. We'll open the floor to question time for Jenny.
I would definitely recommend that, but have the right lawyer. Do a lot of the work yourself, research it, make sure the information you have is for your property, because it could be different to what the neighbour requires, and make sure it suits you. Go through your paperwork first, then send it to your lawyer and tell him exactly what you want, because he's there to work for you. Just don't send him the contract and say, does this look all right? Because he'll say, yeah, it looks fine. But when you tell him, no, I want this done, I want this, they can't do that, then he'll work it out to put it in the right words.
And Jenny, having now said yes to the CSG movement for your property and the power and everything, looking back, is it what you presumed it was going to be like? Has it blown your mind to say, holy smokes, what have we got ourselves in for? Or, you know, this is what we sort of prepared for?
No, not really, because in our area, Origin actually came in and bought a lot of properties, so they put their infrastructure on those properties. Unfortunately, they're only one property away from us. They've got probably thousands and thousands of acres they've actually bought up. They have put their gas processing facilities on, substations on, transmission lines, thousands of gas wells. There's nothing, we didn't know it was happening, we didn't see anything in the paper, and we could not have prepared ourselves for the, what there is now. It is just huge.